Good morning, it's Brian Witten here and ET Art's new video. This video, excuse the camera shaking a little bit, and this video is going to be about the Kariong Glyphs. Going to cover government deceit or leaders' deceit as well, both past and present, and we'll have a comparison as whether we're pretty much in the same state of affairs now as we were 12,000 years ago. Some of the deceit that I want to show you will be relative to what basically happened and the cover up afterwards, and who the leaders were. So we're going to discuss that. The reason I want to show you this is you can see I've got a new tent. Irony would have it, at exactly 3:15 again, like the last time I went away with the storm that made me put my rocks under the microscope. 3:15 again. This trip caused a big gust of wind that tore my old tent, so I had to go buy a new one. And as irony would have it, I'll just show you what this new tent's got built into it. And this is the new tent, so as strange as it may seem, this one has a dark room built into the back of it. As you can see, this part here is all lined, double lined in a black plastic coated thing. You see it sort of clips in around here like this at the top. Okay, so it's sort of like a freestanding tent within the tent. And as a dark room, you know, like for using a microscope and whatnot, it's perfect. I'll be able to sit a little table just in this corner here and have my microscope and my laptop there, so it's ideal for the job. Right, now I'm down at Catherine Hill Bay. I used to come down here and bash through all this scrub you can see in front of me to go fishing on that point out there many years ago. Sadly, times do change, and I'll just rotate the camera here and you can see all the bush that I used to bash through to get to that has been covered in houses. That is inevitability, I guess, of man's progress. Let's hope man's progress in the coming years, or certainly months, is one where the education of his true past becomes a little more important than his possessions. I want to go and show you now what it is we've come here for. Right, I'm down at the headland now. I know it's going to be a bit noisy, so I'll raise my voice. The wind is blowing. What we're seeing here, like I said, I'm not a geologist. I came down here because I know all these rocks are what's old river rocks, you know, and I want to know what's on them. So I brought a hammer with me and I'm going to knock a couple off here, because I sort of expect to see one of two things. This is like this the whole way, all the way. This whole headland is all made up of this type of structure, which is old river rock. So I'm going to grab a couple. Before we get to the end of this video though, there are some amongst you that would think women in politics is a good idea. I'm telling you now that there was a woman in politics at the time 12,000 years ago. When we get to the end of this video, you might reassess that situation. Not that I'm one that's against having women in politics. Yeah, these are the individual rocks, so these are like, they look like boulders made up of, you know, lots of little rocks. Very unusual sort of thing. I guess geologically they've probably got some reason, but this is like this. I know what I'm thinking, which is why I've come and chipped two rocks off. I won't tell you what I'm thinking until I've looked at those, but I'll continue on. Right, these are the two rocks I've just taken off the bedrock down there. So the reason I did that is I want to go back and put those on under a microscope to see whether or not we're exhibiting the same sort of modifications at high technologies as all of the other rocks. And I mean all, every loose rock I've ever got has this IT, you know, advanced IT, fibre optics, all sorts of things I'm going to look at them under the microscope, and we'll have a look to see whether or not they do exhibit any sort of advanced technologies or manipulation. The reason I did that is because I did say and mention to you that I had on one image alone, I had seen an Australian Aboriginal woman smiling at the arrival of a UFO, and this was before the event 12,000 years ago, or at the event prior to the comet impacts. For her to be smiling, she has to be knowing who they are, and they must have come before to help. So it's a possibility that on these rocks at microscopic level we might actually be seeing a demise of yet an earlier precursor to the advanced civilization that was smashed 12,000 years ago by these comets. So that's why I've collected them, and like I said before, once we get to the end of the video, you will look at the likelihood of women in politics as being, like I said, I've got no problem with women in politics, but certainly this woman in politics made her mark, that's for sure. Now we're going to go to another site on the Central Coast, and I'll talk to you again when I get there. Right, we're at the next place I wanted to bring you to, which is Kariong. It's on the Central Coast of New South Wales. The view you're looking at is your minor Woy Woy districts over to the other side of the water, which is more towards Pretty Beach and Kilcare areas. The far ridge that you can see, I've stood on many times as a child wondering how I ended up with a 150-foot cliff of sandstone. I was told it was caused by erosion. I have rocks at microscopic level tell me that the east coast of Australia was created by a far different method. I will make another video and put that up about it. That is not what we're here to discuss today. And as unbelievable as that may sound, I sit here today knowing when I do pass away that I will be lucky enough to have been, well, certainly know how the very continent I stand on and was born and raised on was actually created. And there's not very many men that probably get that right. Whether that's a right or just luck, I don't know. All I know is I do know how my continent was shaped, and it's an amazing thing. I certainly did not expect to know that. So now we're going to go to the glyphs, and like I said, we are talking deception of leaders, both past and present, and we're going to go to that site now where the Egyptian glyphs are in Gosford. I went to school, in primary and high school here, and never heard of them until I watched a documentary on YouTube. So once again, I guess we have a hidden history as such. Right, where we're here now, we're actually at the Kariong Glyphs, which are, I don't know if you see them there. I will cut a couple in and paste a few pictures in for you. What we're actually seeing at this site, in my opinion, would be certainly, I would think that we might be seeing deception, both old deception by leaders and new deception of leaders. Before I go on, I'll tell you a story that I once lived in New Zealand, and I did pick up two hitchhikers that were holidaying from a job that they had in Antarctica. They were, like I said, they were both German, albeit it was uncanny at the time, I probably read something and I thought, well, I might ask them. I actually asked them if they had known much about the Holocaust when it took place. And they said to me, well, we didn't even know about it. Okay, these are people my age, just they were in their mid-30s, and this is less than 25 years ago in New Zealand, okay. I said, what did they know? They said, we didn't know anything about it at all. They were not taught about it at school. They actually didn't find out about the Holocaust until they left school and went to uni. So there was no education in the primary or the secondary teachings for those people, and they were both professionals, so they went to higher school certificate, so you know, your top year before you go into university type of training, and neither of them knew anything until they left school. This is not an unusual thing to happen. It happened because people of a past generation do not want their new generations to know of the shortcomings of past generations. I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. We are told these glyphs by our current government was untrue. They are not real. I would say they are very real. I would put their placement at some period of time over 11,000 years ago, and certainly put here to distract from you the real reason these rocks are here. I will make a point at this point in the following. To me, it seems that we have archaeologists always asking when, when in reality you could ask why, ask and answer the why question, and in answering the why question your when is absolutely obvious. And this is in actual fact exactly what you're seeing at this site as well. And I say this is site because this is a megalithic site. It is not one with just Egyptian hieroglyphics here. What you're seeing here, as you will see, and I will make a short break here to go away from other sites around the world that explain the very same thing. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go away and I'll show you that, and then I'll come back here. Okay. I just wanted to deviate away from Kariong, although not for that long. I do want to show you that the images that you're seeing now have been supplied by Julie Ryder. It's a lady who lives and works in North America and is investigating megalithic sites all over her country that reflect exactly that. What we're seeing here is depictions of the comets. This is, you know, the one that hits the north, the one that hits the south. The one that hits the south is the one that has a bit cut off it as it approaches. That's what it's depicted here. We'll have a look at another one. And yet another. We have two big rocks with one little rock, which is what came to our planet. You will note also when the type of megalithic displays as this, that you will see scattered rocks around here. And generally as a rule there is exactly what they're doing, is telling you exactly how many comets were created from each of the comets that came. So in other words, you'll see breakups of the two main ones, the little one of course landing in Western Australia. I'll show you a few more. Now this is yet another. I wanted to show you this because in actual fact this is one where you're seeing the two comets and the little one displayed, but you're also seeing the southern comet, which is generally how they display these things, breaking into four. Okay, and that's a very, very common thing. You will see that at Kariong when I go through that process of explaining the layout there to you. And yet this is yet another. Look, I could put a lot of these in here, and Julie's done some really, really fine work. I won't drag on too much longer with this because I do want do another video about megalithic rocks. Now as you can see, there's megalithic site after megalithic site after megalithic site all over the world telling us exactly what happened to the comets that came, how they broke apart, and in some cases where they hit. Okay, so where they landed is displayed. All of this is left in very, very high tech stuff on all of the river rocks as well. But what I'm going to do now is suggest to you that we look at these hieroglyphs here, and when I say you don't ask why often enough, why are they here? Why are they not over there? Why are they not down on the waterfront where somebody will find them easier? Why are they actually here? I'll tell you why they're here, because you know they're here when you come here. You look at the hieroglyphs. You've immediately moved what possibly could have been conceived as maybe not as natural as it it isn't. I can tell you now, this rock I'm putting my hand on has been put here. So is this one, more than likely. But this one, definitely, without doubt, has been placed here, as is all of these ones here and these ones here. I'll start down the front of this complex and we'll work our way back up here. But this rock here, unless those boys in the 1960s that came up to do all this stuff had one hell of a big wheelbarrow, because this rock is not here naturally, it's been placed. It is obvious once you start looking. We'll go and start and have a look, eh? And I may not be a geologist, but I'm also not bloody stupid. Let's go have a look, eh? But I'll start here. What we're looking at here, if I come back down here, this is actually where I go in. The entrance is right there now, just to the left of that green bush where I go up to the glyphs. I will just pan up here, and like I said, I'm not a geologist, but I'm not bloody stupid. This type of geology here is on the side of a rock on the top of a mountain. This is water erosion by a seaside that causes this. This rock has been placed here. Okay, moving from that big rock there now this way, I'll zoom into the top of that one and I'll focus it again. And once again we are seeing geology here that is not akin to where the rock is. That is the bottom side of a rock showing water erosion from splashing waves, etc., etc. Here is another rock in the location that would not be erosion at all close to what you would expect where we are. Now I'm going to show you another one. Look at this one. So we go back up here. Look at the erosion on the underside of that rock. I'll zoom in and focus it. Now, that erosion is water erosion. We'll go along and look at this rock now and see how big it is. Like I said, if you look at the size of that, that rock has been put there. So unless your boys in the 60s with their wheelbarrow, and that is amazing. But look at something else we see at this rock. Halfway along this rock you see this crack going down the side of it. Now this is the big rock that's on top of the pile. We all know what happened to the comets. It was split into two major ones. A little bit was cut off one. 3 comets originally came to the planet, which created 7 impacts. What do we see? We see 4 rocks. There's 1 there, 2, 3, 4. That's what happens when this comet hits this one. And the little rock above that is indicative of the one that went directly to the Western Australia. Okay, so that is south of the crack. Okay, and that's what that represents. The big one creating 4. Now we move to the northern impact, or the one that created the Mediterranean, and we see here the same again. We have 1 rock on top of 1 big rock, and we know from looking at the other that that's exactly what happened. 2 big rocks, or I should say 2 decent sized meteors hit and created the Mediterranean. The big one here, represented on the bottom, is exactly what's on the little rocks. Now we're going back and we'll have a look at something else inside the complex, because that's what you're seeing here. It's a complex, okay? Every rock that you can see here has been deliberately placed, has this water erosion on the bottom side of it, so you can see that it is not natural, and therefore the placement of all these rocks are not natural, okay? And that's what we're seeing. I'll just go off now to have a look at some other part on the site now, so you can have a look. But like I said, these are all of them been placed. None of them have been where they are naturally. Now I'm just looking down at the entrance there, so when you come in the entrance, it's these rocks here that I was looking at. You know, you've got 1 big rock here, that one there, with a little one on top right there, and then you pan out here and you're going into 1, 2, 3, 4 rocks with one little one sitting there. So that too, I believe, is probably a representation of the comets that hit Australia again. Okay, I'll just go and show you another thing. I just wanted to show you this because there are some places on these rocks where it is pretty obvious. This is my opinion. Like I said, I'm not a geologist, but some of it looks like it's all fit to me. It's all been fit and placed here. It's really quite an amazing thing. But certainly this bit here certainly looks to me, she's all been fitted in. And that big rock there, a whole lot of these rocks have all been put here to tell the story of the comets. And here are your hieroglyphics there. Slightly better view. Like I said, we could ponder the story, and it may very well be true. I know people that have read the story. It's supposed to be about 2 sons of a king of Egypt came over here. One of them was bitten by a snake and he died, and he was buried here. I would suggest to you that whether that story is true or not, I don't know. I'm not doubting these glyphs are real for a moment. They are very real, but I would expect put here many thousands of years before, and probably about 11,000 years ago, and I would believe to hide the real purpose of the structure, because the real purpose of this structure is to tell us what happened to our planet when the 2 comets hit it. And basically this whole complex is a story about exactly that. That's what we're seeing here. I've just come up from where the glyphs are, which are down in that portion of this complex, back up to the top part here. So I've climbed up these rocks here and I've come up to here. So now we'll discuss what we see here. What we're seeing across the top here is a depiction yet again of the same as we just saw. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 big rocks and 1 little rock. And where did the 4 big rocks land? Where? Well, do you remember me showing you on the other rock? What do we see there? Can you see that? How observant are you? And right under those big rocks you have this, and what that is marked to represent the top of Australia. We are looking there at a representation of the comets all landing above Australia, because this is showing us, so we are looking at Cape York Peninsula displayed underneath the rock where all 4 rocks go to. Now we'll look at another part of the rock. Now that Cape York indentation on that rock, like I said, is underneath the locale for these 4 rocks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we know going across the top that there was 1 little one there, and where did the little one go? The little one went into Western Australia, didn't it? So if we come back along this rock here, what are you seeing here? What do you think that is? That's the bottom of Australia. Great Australian Bight. And where you're seeing here, this scrape mark in this rock here, is telling us where the bloody little one landed. In the outback of Western Australia, which is exactly what it's telling us. I would also expect here that this, see that rock there? I'm going to do another video because I've seen that indentation of a comet hit closer to where South Australia is, and that isn't on this sequence. I'll show you one other thing. I'll note that mark there. It's just up from what is representative of, my opinion, Tassie. We've got a comet mark there. There are a couple of marks around this area that I would suspect are historical, even more so than 12,000 years ago. I don't know how, but it looks like they might have actually built a few more things into here. I'll show you another place where I think that's the case. I just wanted to show you from there where we're looking at what I perceive as being, basically letting us know where the comets landed, which was, north of Cape York Peninsula. I wanted to show you down here, that big crack there. See that big crack there? That's representative of coming up on the east coast of Australia there. And I'll note that big rock. That's one hell of a big rock, right? It goes all the way over there. And there's also this one here in front of me. And one down there. That's a historical event. I'm absolutely certain of it. I will show you in another video another day that, only because of some things I've found on other rocks. But effectively, that crack there, that crack is a historical event, I should say, long before 12,000 years ago too, I would expect. I will go that in another video, but like I said, I just wanted to show you that there is a representation of the Cape York Peninsula under the very rocks, the very four rocks that it shows you were created by the impact in the Southern Ocean. And those four comets come flying over and separated the Australian land mass from Asia. Now, as much as I think this and that other rock I just showed you are in actual fact historical events, this one is not. This mark here, where it is indicating, in my opinion, the one that lands in Western Australia, because if I pan back out now and move back, you'll see that in respect to where Tasmania is, but that's, about where we were. What I want to show you is the whole sequence of events. It's said that it created the, the Cape. Take a closer look at the shape of that rock up there, because that's what it's telling it did. Because that part of Australia that looks like that wasn't there 12,000 years ago, which is why all these rocks are here to tell us exactly that. Isn't that an amazing thing? Anyway, we'll go on, I'll move on and we'll show you something else now. Here we see just yet another depiction of the Gulf, I should say the Gulf, the Cape York Peninsula, just made into the rocks. It's how they do things. This is another rock that we should very take very close look at, because what you're actually seeing here, like I showed you on the other complex, is exactly that. What you're looking at here is a depiction of the landmass in Central America before the comet hit. Okay, that's what you're seeing here. That's exactly what this is depicting. And I'll show you how. I'll just move a little bit closer. This might go out of focus a bit. Basically, this part in here is the old Gulf. Okay, this part here is the west coast, east coast. This whole landmass in here has been taken out by these comets. Right, that's the northern impact. That is the part that shows you before, okay, the North American impact. And back down under those rocks again now, what we are seeing is exactly that, a depiction of the landmass of Central America with the land gone. So what you're seeing at this site is the North American, I should say the Central American continent, both before and after the comet impact. That's what you're actually seeing on those last two rocks. This one and that last rock up top is before, this is after. That's what you're seeing here. The landmass has moved all that stuff to the right of what we depict the Central American comet impact is illustrated right here. I ponder with this rock as well. As you can see, it is directly above where the depiction of the Gulf of Carpentaria is. I'll just note that and say, well, Is that not depicting Australia? And these marks here at the top, going across the top there, depicting the comet impacts at the top of Australia, because that's what that looks like to me. And I suggested to you that it is these 1, 2, 3, 4 that are reflective of the 4 comet impact sites that separate the Australian continent from Asia, which I will also show you now on the microscopic view, believe it or not, on the rock that I've had in my possession for over 5 years. I think I've had that, probably longer, probably 7 years. It is an amazing thing to think that that rock has this story of the shaping of the very continent I stand on. It's amazing. I just want to pan out just a bit, just for a minute, so excuse the camera jitter. That lower part of the rock here, where this gouge is here, I believe that also to be a historical comet impact in Central Australia. It is not one of the 3 comets that are depicted in the walls at Sacsayhuaman in Peru, as I depicted in that video. I'm going to have to go back and modify, not the video, but I'm going to tell you in here why I made that mistake, or that I did make an error there as well. But I believe this one here is, like I said, depictive of the one I've already shown you, that is depicted more above South Australia. Now I want to bring your attention to this part of the complex now, which is underneath the rock that I just depicted. Looks like the 4 comets have hit above Australia, right? So directly underneath that, and directly underneath the depiction that I perceived to be the landing of the comets above the Cape, is directly below that is this, okay? And it isn't difficult to perceive that the continent, or lower part of South America here, and that we are looking at possibility of the continent of South America here being depicted as being a comet impact here as well, and that it's severed what is Antarctica from South America. More importantly, from that image, I'm going to just try and get that image just a little bit better for you. Now I've just I've just moved the camera back a bit and refocused to give you an opportunity here to possibly see what at the bottom of South America, as is depicted in the Sacsayhuaman walls in Peru, the movement of the line of longitude itself, and the creation of the initial 10 to 12 degrees of tilt of the planet's axis by the comet that hit in the bottom of South America. And that is by, I believe, a very, very straight edge on this face here, and a very, very, very straight edge on this face here, and there's another one in there as well. So what we're seeing here is a record, I should say, of the actual movement, I believe, here, as we see in the Sacsayhuaman walls, of the actual line of longitude itself. So in other words, bang, the initial tilt, then back out, and then up, and it is mirrored, as I'll show you now, in the Sacsayhuaman walls. But before I do that, I would actually want to show you one other thing. I'll zoom back out again on this image. One of the reasons why I came back to show you this is that we have a situation where in this location we have the Australian continent being created by severing of the mass of, or taking the land mass above Australia taken away. We have here the depiction of, in my opinion, South America being severed from Antarctica here, and this one also a historic event. We're sort of seeing 3 purposes here in the one place, and I wanted to bring that to your attention But before going any further from that point, I would like to make another point here, and it is to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island community in Australia. This site here, and I have friends as well that have, and friends that are, you know, of Aboriginal descent, and they have shown me rocks and whatnot, and I'm well aware of the rules and regard, you know, smoking yourself and your spirit and the understanding, not to the degree obviously that you would. I am not an Aboriginal. All I know is this: I've got to tell the story that's on these rocks. I will come back and make another video in coming days that will be more addressed to the Aboriginal community, because I have seen other things that this video is getting, like I said, it's too long. I want to come back and address that in a very reasonable and sensible manner, and with the respect that it deserves. Okay, so it's got to be a video on its own, because of other things that I've come aware of. So I do understand that there would be you know, significance to your beliefs at this site, and I certainly do not try to do what I'm doing here to upset you. Okay, this is just what I perceive the site to be. It is far more to me when I look at it like this, telling of what happened to past races. I won't go into that in this video either, but what I wanted to do, going back into this point now and moving on, was to bring to your attention the fact that this one location right where I stand here is showing me three things, and three is so important. It is in the shape of the pyramids themselves. If we look at that, how many pyramids there are, how many Queen's pyramids there are. It is also marked here in the cavity of the chest of the inserted individual here. Yes, you could say that that is not a human carcass. I'll move away and relight it just a bit differently here, and you will see what it looks like in a different light. The three black marks, there's three black marks. There are not five, nor are there four, nor are there two. There are three. Now we're going to go into the reason why there are three black marks. It is not just why. There are three images at this place I stand here. That the reason there are three is very pertinent, and must, like I said, the middle of the three, which is the little comet that landed in the Central Australia, which I show you again here. I want to bring your attention, if I could, to a couple of things on this rock. One is that there is a distinct arrowhead here pointing directly at what is the comet, okay, and this is the one that I will now insert a view of Google Earth from right now, so you can have a look at that. That is still there and above ground, measures about 16.5 kilometres, I think it is, wide, and that is what you're actually seeing here. Is in actual fact the creation of that valley here and the comet coming to rest. That is not the other one that I just showed you. For the length of keeping this video reasonably short, that is absolutely, albeit it is only 16 kilometres wide. It has got a huge arrow pointing at it for a very good reason, and I will explain that now, and show you why that arrow is so big. Okay, because albeit the size of that comet is small, it is absolutely important, like, and I mean to the nth degree. Okay, I will now tell you why. Now, as you can see, having looked at the site a little bit differently, it certainly displays another story. When you look at the underside of a lot of these big rocks, it's definitely showing geological features that would not be put in this position. It's just impossible. It's the underside of the rock for starters. These rocks have been put here to tell us the story of the comets. The comet sequence, like I said, as you saw with the other videos and the other pictures given to me by Julie Ryder, that the megalithic sites all over the world represent what happened and why. Okay, now I want to show you an image I actually pulled off the Cairo University site. I actually got posted to me. The question was, well, it wasn't to me, it was to everybody, who is this king and queen in this image? So I'll show you that image now, and we're going to discuss that, because what we'll see with that is exactly what we're seeing here, for the very same reason. Okay, these were put here to draw away from you don't have to put this here. If you put this, it could go down in the coast or any wall anywhere. Why here? That's what you've got to ask yourself. Why here? And why here? Why here is to deceive you yet again from what the real purpose of the rocks being here were. Because the rocks and the purpose of them being here were to tell us what comet sequence and how many hit here. This is exactly why this complex is here. It's actually been a structure that's been built. And this was not put here by us. Okay, this was put here by the people that brought those comets to our planet. Because of what was going on it. Okay, we'll discuss that a little bit later in the video, but that's who brought these here. These were not placed here by people in the 60s. They certainly were not put here by Aboriginals, and they certainly weren't put here by any advanced race of humans. These were placed here by the very people that brought the comets to our planet. Now, I've brought us back to the Sacsayhuaman walls in Peru. I wanted to correct something that I'd said in the video that I put up as what my portrayal of what this complex meant. The mistake I made wasn't particularly that big a mistake, but it really was. I mean, what I depicted these two walls here was depicting Nibiru and the other body which rotated around Nibiru, and that is incorrect. What we're seeing here is, in my opinion, the tracking of two comets. At this point there are two comets. Okay, that is what is happening here. When I have done a screenshot, but I won't need to here, you can see that pretty clearly that there is a triangular shape here, and once again 3 and representative of 3, and not only that, we're seeing this comet here, right, which is being tracked, being turned into 3 comets. Or should say 2. So in other words, the 2 comets is turned into 3. And in actual fact, what we're also seeing here by the representation of a pyramid is that in actual fact it's a man-made event, or a unnatural, not an unnatural event, not a natural event. This is not an occurrence here. This occurrence is being created, as is this, as is the deviation of this comet here. That is what I believe that little notch there is also representing. That's saying at this point is also when we not only chop this one into 2, but we grasp control of this one here as well, and then turn the comets this way. Okay, that is what I believe we are seeing there. So I wanted to correct that. And the reason I needed to correct that is we would then have to say, are we then seeing, in my opinion here, with where we're going to go now, a warning. We are seeing exactly that. I'm going to move to another image now that is exactly the image that made me go back down and have a look again at the site at Kariong. I saw in this image inserted here, just while I move on, same sort of thing that I saw, where I had, well, not deception, if you want to call it that. Like I said, the survivors, the people that built the glyphs in Gosford, in my opinion, are good people. They are the survivors of the race. And that's what I believe has happened. Okay, so I'm not saying the story is untrue or anything of that nature. They could have written that story on any set of rocks, though, realistically, but they chose those set of rocks to write it on, and the story is certainly not depictive of anything to do with dual comets tipping the globe, or in actual fact the, well, I mean, I'm not an Egyptologist, so I certainly don't know if that's the case, but I know the people that are Egyptologists, and certainly the story, I certainly believe they would tell me it would be the truth. They would have no reason to not say that's the case. So this is what I mean. I would think that maybe what we're seeing here is the survivors coming and writing those glyphs, because the bad guys were all dead. Okay, so they've come to hide from coming generations the truth of what happened, which we're actually going to delve into now. And we're going to delve into the fact, if I could actually show you somewhere where in actual fact we are going from 2 to 3 here, and I can insert an image right now that will show you going from 1, 2 to 3 in the comets and the way they deliver to here. I'll put that in now, but really, quite frankly, put that in here, and that's a really pathetically stupid thing to do. But if I said to you the way and manner in which I've got to get that image there where you see 1, 2, 3 being created is really quite difficult. You have to follow a very strict set of rules in microscopic level on a rock with a microscope and a light that's external to the microscope to get it, and that is what you've got to do. Now, you can dispute that all you want, that's fine too, as you can dispute everything else that I've shown you at the megalithic site at Kariong. Now, I just wanted to post this image here. It was posted on the Cairo University website, of which I am a member. I actually did link a couple of my videos in respect the true, or one of the true purposes for the pyramids. That's another video I'm in the process of redoing. I actually, like I said, I do make mistakes, and I've had to go back and correct some things, as I just had to do with the Sahuman walls in Peru. You know, there's no book here, so I'm portraying to you, I guess, an understanding, looking from a different perspective of certain things. The question posed with this upload was, who are they? And I looked at it, I'll be honest, I didn't look at it for that long. I sort of panned at this and panned up and down. I'll just move the image just a tad, and I came to the realization of what it was. I was sort of seeing towards the top of this image more than the middle. I'll just zoom in and I'll do a screen capture, okay, of what it is we're looking at, okay, because it's this part here that is important. This part going across here, okay, it is extremely important, this, and what you're actually seeing, okay, because over here we are seeing on this side, and here, and here, and here, dialogue. That is what we're seeing, a depicted dialogue. I want to let you know that just like the walls that I see inside the Kariong Glyphs, are we looking at the hieroglyphics being added later, and that the story here is more a pictorial one. Because if I look at what I'm seeing in a pictorial sense, it is telling a far different story, and there is a motif here, a very clear motif to me when I look at what is going on, and it is pretty clear to see who is who, okay? Now I just want to show you something. Now I know that maybe some of you are very well up on Sumerian text and the characters involved there, I would think that this very, very strongly relates exactly to that. And when asked who the two people were that were standing in this pictorial here, I thought I knew who it was, but I didn't want to say, you know, out in public media on the Cairo University in a manner that was certainly left in a very, very unprofessional manner, you know, whereas putting into a video like this and understanding where my opinion come from would be more understandable. So it is, like I said, with the utmost respect of the culture, or any cultures that live anywhere near the Mediterranean, in any of the videos that we've looked at this point in time as being the directed impact places of comets. It was obvious that the comets have been guided in a manner to separate the land masses, so some of the buildings that are there are without doubt in line with those structures. I don't want to deviate away from the point that I'm trying to make with this video here. What I want you to notice here, though, if you remove all the motif that you see or the hieroglyphics, okay, so in other words you are left purely and simply with the pictorial diagram and remove the hieroglyphics, okay, understand that who you are looking at and look at their headdress, okay. So if I zoom into the Queen's headdress, it is easy to see that the Queen is on the left, she is here. This is the King on the right. I also would like for you to bring to your attention what it is she has in her hand. Okay, there may be some of you who think that that may be a bunch of dead rose stems. I would think that would be quite the opposite. I would think that that would probably appear to be some instrument that would possibly cause pain and agony by swinging it, something like a cat o' nine tails or something of that description. In the right hand, I'm not sure. It looks like it may have been somewhat, I don't know, it's a bit difficult to see what she's got in her right hand there, but that would appear to be the case there. I'll move back out again now to look at what we would see the King to hold, and it would appear to be, to me at least, that he's holding something in his hand and pointing it, and got his hand on like what would be a pistol or something that fires something, and it's probably too is going to cause pain. So that was what I wanted to bring to your attention there. Now I just want to zoom out again and show you one other thing. And now, in answering who these people are, I would expect they are king and queen of what was then the world. Okay, that the queen depicted on the left was the queen of the world, and it was a world power set on the absolute carnage of other races. This is why, I mean, with all the respect I possibly can for any culture around the Mediterranean, this is not your people. This is 12,000 years ago, and humans were dealt with, it would appear, in a certain manner. I want you to notice the size of these people. Okay, I want you to notice them on the size of them as depicted to the person at the bottom, because this is also a depiction of what you're supposed to notice here when you remove the glyphs and look at only the pictorial part of, or the pictorial element. And if we zoom in, we see at the bottom the motif is of a man in between the legs of the king and queen. It is there because that is how important the king and queen thought they were in the greater scheme of things. This is the reality of what this depiction is. It's saying that the king and queen thought they were the most important, that the leaders thought they were the most important, and that the people were insignificant, which is why we are seeing a depiction here of a man only that size and related to the king. It's not anything to do with him being 180 yards high or whatever. Okay, that is merely why that is like that. I want to draw your attention now to the very top of the very same motif that has these depictions in here. Now I'm going to zoom back into the characters at the top, and like I said, in the Sumerian text it'll be Enki and a couple of other names, and I'm not going to go into that too much, but what I wanted you to notice is what we're seeing here with the motif of the person in the middle. Okay, I'll just move that just a tad. Okay, this is the queen of the world. Okay, this is prior to the event. Okay, so we are seeing comets on the way into rid the planet Earth of her and her king, and the planet of what I would suspect is the barbaric behaviour as portrayed in my 9 from 9 video, also uploaded on this channel I should say. I would urge, if you haven't, to go and look at that video, because it would very, very precisely depict exactly what happened. The reason why I'll bring us to this portion here is, number one, I would like you to first of all note the size of people. Right, so the size of people here are exactly the same as each other, and remember who wrote this here. In my opinion, the pictorial element of this megalith are not created by those that wrote the hieroglyphics. If the hieroglyphics do not reflect in their writing, in these images, the bargaining of the human race, because that's what the picture's pictorial part of it does. Okay, I'll go on and you'll understand why I say that. Okay, so I'm not just saying that out of hot air. There is a very, very clear pictorial of exactly what they're discussing. Okay, so what I wanted you to notice here is the queen is the same size as the person on the left. Right, the king and queen are looking left, and the person on the left is looking right. Okay, that's what you need to see. They are negotiating, and that is that element in this mural. I'll show you one other. Now I've just scanned over to the right hand side of the same image now, where we can see the queen here and the king here seated, and back over here we see this person that Enki is talking with or discussing again with. Okay, and he is negotiating with this person exactly what the negotiation is about. Okay, now remembering that I've said to you that and suggested in the megalithic structures to this point there has been an attempt, or at least a manipulation, where it would appear going from 2 comets approaching the planet to being 3, and they're not only going to 3 by the say Sacsayhuman walls in Peru, that they in actual fact then were guided both and all to the planet. That we looked at what the situation is here. If I showed you, and I did already show you how to go from 1, 2, 3 being a pathetic thing, like it's an insert from a microscopic image, which could be me playing silly buggers really, but and I'm not. But on this very image here is the very same thing. What you actually have on this image is between the Enki character and the other one to which he is referring to and talking to and negotiating with on behalf of the king and queen of, not Egypt, the king and queen of the world. That is what this situation is. They were the most powerful people on the planet. They thought they were more powerful than those that came to warn them. And that is why they are depicted as so big below the very people they are now negotiating with in this part of the rock. Okay, do you understand? That is why it's like it. It is the pictorial element of the rock that we need to look at. Now, between Enki and the person he negotiates with, I want to zoom in here, because if I move a little further over here, we in actual fact have very, very, very thing that they are negotiating. I know that doesn't look real clear, probably on your screen. I'll be honest, it looks good on my camera, on my little lens here. If I can think of a better way of getting that clearer, but I'm sure if you live in Egypt or anywhere where this structure is, but you'll see that that's very, very clear. One round dot turning into two round dots. Okay, and I think at this point, even in this pictorial, which is why I said to you, I don't believe it be created by an Egyptian culture in 3000 BC or whatever. Most of these complexes are far, far, far too accurate in the manner of how many comets hit where, and absolutely, if you can consider some of those images that I've just shown you, looking through the window, if so to speak, at the Kariong Glyphs and seeing South America, you know, or Central America continent portrayed by looking through a hole in rock, you know, and it may be clear to me, and you may think that that's fine, but I would say here that what we're seeing here is exactly that. We are seeing a negotiation here about exactly this. One comet getting turned into two here, okay, and I've already inserted images, like I said. One other where it says we look at three comets coming in. I'll insert that now and I'll talk to you about it. Note that the one in the middle is not as bright, okay, and that is exactly as it would have looked in the sky. Now I draw your attention to the king's headdress. At least that's what you're led to believe it is. It is not a headdress at all. They didn't walk around with this stupid looking hat on here. I don't mean to be rude by the people, like I say, of the culture. We are seeing yet again a truth of what we will do in the event you do not do as you're told. We will not have the carnage of the human race as permitted in the, like I said, the inserted, as you would see in the depicted image of the human body thrown over the offering table, and that's what I said it is. I want you to look closer here, because what you're actually seeing is exactly what happened to the planet and what was brought down upon us because these people did not follow the rules. That is what has happened here. These two people, the Queen and the King. So we will look at the King's headdress first. We will see that what we are seeing is one turned into two, with another one made on the way through, just as we are seeing. Okay, that is exactly what we are seeing here. We are seeing a depiction of one comet turned into two, and then turned into a third one on the way to the planet. That they are deviated, the comets are deviated again and moved. And where do they come? They come down right on top of the king's real head, right here. But I want to draw your attention here to what do. They create tidal waves. Yet again you see depictions of tidal waves coming over the top of the king's head on the very motif that you think is a hat. It is not a hat. Do not be misled. The picture we are looking at has been left by the people that built the pyramids. Make no doubt about that. The accuracy in that is exactly the case. We are saying probably because there is one of these marked here and one of these marked here, that one hit one side of the equator and one hit the other side of his head, okay, in that instance. Okay, but I would think that that clearly depicts that. I would also clearly think that this line here is also once again a depiction of angle, and you'll note these two direct lines here are depicted of angle of the very comet itself. So if you extended these lines down here, you would find that there is a degree of probably 10 or 24 degrees, depending on whether you're going to look at the initial. And I could, like I said, I could draw lines on these, but I think the picture speaks 1,000 words. And then we'll take a closer look at the Queen's headdress. Now we look at the Queen's headdress. I say and have mentioned to you that she was not Queen of what was Egypt, because this is pre the Mediterranean even being created. It was two comets from the comet impacts that created the Mediterranean, so she is not the Queen of Egypt. This is not a headdress. She did not walk around with this hat sticking out the top of her head. What we're seeing here is a depiction that she was, as I mentioned, Queen of the world. That is why the round globe is there. I note that the globe is not fully encircled by the two parts that are portrayed once again. More than one purpose. A comet being broken into two and landing right on her head, which in actual fact what happened in the Mediterranean. There were two comets. I will once again insert the image of Africa here. Okay, and now I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit, and I'll insert another image here which shows you the direction of the two comets that came and created the Mediterranean, or at least extended it far beyond what it was, which was also displayed in proportion at the Sacsayhuaman walls in Peru. Okay, in the foreground, above the walls, pointed to by arrows on the third wall. The third wall is the very wall that depicts the northern comet. It is the very one that creates the Mediterranean, which is why it also has two arrows in it. I will insert that picture now and show you where the two arrows are. That is why they're on that wall. Okay. Now, like I said, as usual, we have more than one purpose for the manner in which the diagram displays, because I want you to see the thing that goes around the globe is not a completed circle. So in other words, she thought she had complete control of the planet Earth, and like I said, if you were into women in politics, this is where you would probably come to the realization that this woman in politics brought about the actual cleaning of the planet's surface by all of those who partook in what it was she and her king tried to push through the human race as a way and a means of survival, or extending their own life, or for whatever purposes. But what I wanted to bring your attention about is the moving up in the arrows here, considering that they're coming down as comets, but in going up they're actually pointing at something. When we point up here, we point to the fellow here that is negotiating here, and when we point up here, we point up here to the other fellow that's negotiating here. That might also be an indication there of what the reality is. And I also note to you this, realize what you're actually seeing here. Okay, you're seeing a motif here that is exactly, once again, reflective of two comets being turned into three. Right, this is a little comet here that initially gets moved off and is in this direction. I would expect, like I said, there will be a directional thing about the placement of this motif, where it is on the planet, and this will be reflective of the one that lands in Western Australia, and these two, once again, are reflective of the comets. Okay, and up here, like I said, you wonder here, I don't know, I don't read hieroglyphics, I'm not an Egyptologist, but I have seen certainly Sumerian texts that without doubt, I'm not going to insert them here because this video is already grown long enough, I think you can see where I'm coming from here. I don't read Egyptian hieroglyphics. I am under the impression that what we are seeing when I look at the pictures as just pictures, which is what they do. They do not leave that the message on the rock is pictures. It is not a language. There is no point in leaving the message from the pyramid makers in a language, because there could have been any language. Their message had to last for 20,000 years plus, because that is in actual fact what the design of the pyramid does. So the hieroglyphics, like I said, I do not understand. I'm not going to even pretend to understand what they are. There could be elements within them which are correct. Certainly without doubt, like I said, I have seen Sumerian text that without doubt depicts exactly the comet sequence. Somehow there would appear to be a deliberate cover-up in after the event, okay, of what was the real meaning of this motif. As we've seen, I'll pan out again and understand that what we're seeing is exactly that. We are seeing the people depicted at the top of this image putting themselves on this motif at the same size as us, you know. In actual fact, if anything, they've probably placed themselves sitting down, whereas we're standing. So maybe they think we're really, really, really important, and that is, like I said, shown by the number of rocks at our feet. There are people that would say you're incorrect. These people are deceitful beyond all means, and it goes across all manners of faith, when in reality that is not the case, okay? Because in reality what we're seeing is a people by the number of rocks at my feet, and I am showing you images when I show them to you at microscopic level like this, and I'll just wander through a few. Whilst I extract images like this off rocks, it must be considered that what I'm talking about is true here, and that we must consider that the elements within this diagram of a pictorial sense are in actual fact not put here by any Egyptian culture at all, but by the people that in actual fact steered the planets here, and that the hieroglyphics, or Egyptian nature, or Egyptian hieroglyphics, be added at a time later on, purely and simply to hide the behaviour of their previous, their previous generations, and that's not an unhuman thing to do. Now, one other thing, just before moving away from the Saxo-Hammernew, one other thing before we move away from this aerial view of the Saxo-Hammernew walls in Peru, I wanted to, like I said, bring attention to you that these four walls here, in my opinion, were reflective of the shift of the line of longitude that the two initial comets hit on, okay? And those line of longitude, this is the movement of the same line of longitude, okay? And the indentations in these walls showing the whereabouts in the line of longitude in both latitude as to where they landed, okay? And when that is where they landed, this is the Australian one down here, and how much the line of longitude moved, in which direction it went. And I suggested to you that was the case, and said to you that there is also another place on the planet where that exists. I will show you that now. This place is called Quiñuani. It is in Peru. I must thank, before I go on, Brian Forster, which is the person that has uploaded this video onto YouTube and made available for me and many other people to access in his attempt to understand the unexplained modified or unexplained sites like this. I mean, like the one pyramids, the unexplained sites all over the globe. Really amazing in the technology shown. I would also indicate to you that this site itself is a portrayal of exactly that. That is, its meaning is the amount of longitude, or the line of longitude, and how much it moved. I haven't done a very good analysis of an aerial view from this site. I've actually tried to find where it is, but it is impossible to find it. I actually had a bit of a look, even doing searches on Google Earth. I couldn't find a reference to it to the point where I could see where it is, although I believe it is on the lake Titicaca, or on the edge of it, and I think from memory it runs north-south, okay, which would be also very true in respect how many comets hit the planet and all this. I can't see that from above to relate to you, but I didn't want to go and extend that too long. One thing I did want to do and show you here is the melted staircase here, which, like I said, depending on where you're looking at a melted staircase from, it can be depicted as many things, can't it? Look, I've just shown you that you have seen tidal waves running over the King's Head on an image left there by a race of people that guided the comets to our planet. This could be a melted staircase, but I bring it to your attention not because it may or may not look like possible tidal waves coming at you, depending on what light you're looking at. But the melted staircase is also a reflection of a melted staircase that is at the pyramid, which also lends further to my argument that the pyramid complex itself is in actual fact exactly that, a very complicated and perfectly explained method on the exact movement of the planet and how it was affected by the comets that were directed to our planet because the king and well, I should say the Queen and her king were not prepared to listen. So that's where we are at this present point in time. That does pretty much bring me to the end of this video. There is one more thing I'll show you. Now we come close to the end of this video, and I did want to go back and just show you once again an image of the casing stones at the top of the centre pyramid that we are told were removed. I am of the belief that we are seeing them built exactly as they were intended to be built, and that you're seeing a depiction of the actual size of the tidal wave here and the height of the water level here. That's what you're seeing here. I'm going to put up another video for those of you that haven't seen it. There is a video putting up where the pyramid complex has been decoded to show exactly the same thing, that the Earth's motion, both during the dual comet impact and the manner that the Earth was affected, was all recorded at a very advanced level by a civilization that was not human. It portrays and predicts the planet movement for over 20,000 years, something I believe that man has always and will be incapable of doing so. The other reason why I still want to mention that here is that I'm going to upload that video shortly, where I do the whole lot of the explanation for the decoding of the pyramid complex itself, all in one video. Okay, I just wanted to scoot back here to show you what my intent was. Jesus, I tell you, I come up with some good ones. They're just really bad pride jokes. You would need to be a family member to understand where. I actually went away and the tea bags I took were also intense. Anyway, that's another story as well. Listen, this is what I'm proposing I'm going to do for at least the next couple of months. I'm going to shoot away, I'm going to go up and down the North and New South Wales coast. I'm going to go as far as Queensland, and I'm going to do a study on just how many of the rocks and the rivers between here and the Queensland border. I'll probably go as far as the other side of the border there, and I'm not going to really say where I'm going. I'll be honest with you, I do ponder my safety in doing so, understanding you know, the content of the videos I'm putting up. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to paint ET art down the side of that white land so that you can see there, and also have ET art by B. Whitten. I'm not going to spend too much money doing that because it could be a fruitless exercise in about you know, 2 or 3 months or 6 weeks or whatever the time frame is. We could see UFOs not the size of you know, Canberra over our capital cities, but UFOs the size of the ACT. That would be probably more realistic to what would to be expected if they actually did come out of the atmosphere. Remembering the technology that I'm showing you on these rocks at microscopic level is in actual fact I would expect done 12,000 years ago, okay, as was the manipulation of the planet and all these other things. Look, that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I, for my way, will go off and try and inform people as to what I've found. I'm not going to try and change your mind or your religious aspect or whatever. I'm merely portraying a message that would appear to be left for us in a very, very high-end and high-tech method on rocks. And I'll be honest with you, the point that you've got to understand here is that if in actual fact the message is being extracted at a time when you need, you know, USB microscopes, that's what I've been using, and LED lights and computers and such things, that to extract the images, whether or not you want to, you know, deny what you're seeing here as relative at any point in time to what I've gone through and discussed in this entire video, you know, you must come to terms with or not they are true and real. This is a possibility. You may deny them all you want, but in reality the very images wouldn't be extractable unless left in a period of time when they are to be extracted, which means you need the advances of society with the items necessary to get the images off the rocks, and that time is now. Okay, and that's where we're at. So we really need to really understand that that is the exact time that those rocks have been left in their numbers for the data to be extracted, is when there is an advanced civilization, and that is now. So just exactly whether we've had warnings already, I do not know. I fear we have. I fear there are 2 events that have taken place on our planet where the dates are almost the same. And if we looked at another one being in 611, the other 2 are either side of that. But I'll leave you with that thought, and like I said, I will look into doing this and seeing at what extent the modification of rocks exist. To this point, it's every one I've picked up, even the ones I smashed off the headland at Catherine Hill Bay. I'm sorry about that, but it was something necessary. Okay, listen, have a nice night, have a nice day whenever it is you've watched this video. It is a very, very daunting subject, but one we all need to be aware of, I'm absolutely certain. Thanks very much for your time. This is Brian Whitten and ET Art, finishing up this video, and like I said, I hope you look forward and stick to the channel, because I've got some other really, really interesting videos coming up, albeit we've solved the pyramid, and probably, well, at least in my opinion, and really mind-blowing things coming out here in discovery of these megalithic structures around the planet. We have, I'm not kidding, there is even more mind-blowing stuff to come, and one of them would be to say that in both directions, the story that is being told and the historical, if you wish, recording on our creation of our very continent has been recorded in extremely more megalithic manner than even what I've shown you on this this video. So that is one other video I will do, and not only I'm certain, absolutely certain, that when I get my microscope, my new microscope, that it will show the story that gets told when it gets told at a megalithic manner, as it does. It gets told in exactly the same way in the opposite direction, and that is that my microscope, and as close as I can get, and as well focused as I can get, if it is in actual fact pixelation that I'm seeing in some instances, the vision of what it is I'm supposed to go in the story, I can see it still going down into the crack in a smaller manner even still. So that's what I'm going to get, and we'll get those really microscopic versions of exactly the same thing. Okay, so stay tuned to my channel. I hope you look forward to it, and I hope you appreciate the time I'm going to go and put into doing this. In the same process that I'm doing this, I will be typing a book to reflect exactly that, and inserting the relevant diagrams to depict the exact, well, when I say that, this one true purpose of the pyramid complex, and that is to tell us what happened to our planet many years ago when two comets landed on its surface, directed by people that it would seem their warnings to the human race and those in control of it, it would appear, fell on deaf ears. Okay, so like I said, I hope you've enjoyed the day. I hope you enjoy the video. This is Brian Witten and ET Art signing off on this video, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.